run into the problem where you want to paint a wall, but the sheetrock isn't ready? Maybe it's all torn up and you got to get it smoothed out before you're ready to paint. Well, today I'm going to show you how to do it like a pro. I'm Mark Holden. I'm a realtor, and I've worked in and around the home construction industry for almost 30 years. I want to show you not just how to own a home, but how to maintain that home like a pro. So here's my challenge. This wall behind me used to be covered with plate glass mirror from floor to ceiling. In the 1970s, that was really cool. We thought that looked awesome, but it was dated and it needed to go. I had built this other mirror, 20 years ago as a gift for my wife, and I wanted it to be showcased against an accent wall, but when we pulled that plate glass mirror off, it tore the sheetrock, and that's got to get fixed, and you got to retexture before you can paint. Same thing goes with wallpaper. You tear down that nasty old 1970s foil wallpaper, that was a beautiful yellow and avocado green. You've got to fix the sheetrock that's underneath it because the wallpaper will tear it. If you don't fix it, you're going to have a lot of problems before you paint. When you remove the mirror, when they stick it up, they use these big giant splotches of glue, this big adhesive, and it tears off big pieces of sheetrock. And that brown paper is a problem because if you start texturing over that with a joint compound, the water is going to get into that paper. It's going to start bubbling up, and then it becomes a really big problem. It's really hard to fix after that. The first thing you want to do is use a little putty knife and scrape it clean. There's going to be pieces where it comes up that's going to be loose. And you want to just take those, scrape them away, peel it. And then what you have to do is you need to get an oil-based primer. I say oil-based. Here's Kills Original. I love this stuff because it's cheap. Works great. It also stinks really bad. But you want either an oil-based primer or a shellac-based primer, not water-based. Because if you put the water base on that brown paper, the brown paper absorbs it, and it's going to bubble up, and then it just becomes, it's really difficult to get those bubbles out of there afterwards. So all I'm going to do is, once you have scraped away all the loose stuff, get you some oil-based primer. You could probably also use a spray can, but that's really going to make a mess. And you're just going to coat. I use a little dabbing motion with this sponge brush that comes out better that way. But you just want to get all that in there, okay? All these little brown spots, get them covered with an oil-based primer. And what you're doing is you're creating a water-resistant shield, basically, so that once you put the water-based texturing compound on it, it's not going to get absorbed into that brown paper. When you do this, you're going to get little, I call them little boogers, from the paper will rise up. What you want to do is just take your trowel and gently go back over them and scrape them down smooth. Don't get super aggressive at it, or else you're just going to tear things and you're starting back. You're going to start back from square one again. But there may be occasions, and I have one over here, where you're scraping along and you hit another loose spot and you've got more brown paper coming through. And that's going to happen every now and then. If that happens, just take your primer like we did before and hit it again. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you just want it relatively smooth, and you don't want a bunch of those little boogers all over your wall that's going to get caught in the joint compound when you start to put your texture on it. When you're done with your brush, let me show you the correct way to clean it up. Believe me, that stuff is not worth cleaning up. You'll never get all that oil-based primer out of there. Just buy a cheap little foam brush to get the job done. Toss it in the trash when you're finished. Once it's dried up, it's not considered toxic waste. The next step in this process is to fill the holes with joint compound. Sometimes it's called hot mud because it sets quickly and actually generates some heat while it sets. Here's the ingredients that we're using. We're going to be using this Easy Sound 20-minute joint compound, and it's called 20-minute because you have about 20 minutes to work with it before it hardens up. You can also get 45-minute, 60-minute if you're less confident and want a slower setting time, but I'm impatient, so I get that. We also need a mud pan. and I've got a 6-inch taping knife. I wouldn't recommend buying a cheap taping knife. You can get plastic ones, but they're crap and they don't last very long. I would just spend a few bucks and get you a metal one that's going to last. All right, I've mixed a little bit here in the pan. You don't want too much because it's going to dry quick, or yeah, it's going to set quickly. So you just don't want to waste a lot of it. I'm going to add a little bit of water. I've got my hose. Using your taping knife, you can slowly begin to mix it in. And you want this to be a decent, a spreadable consistency, not too thin, not too thick. I've got my hot mud mixed, and I'll show it to you. So about the consistency of peanut butter, I guess. A very thick peanut butter. All right, so the technique here, when you're filling the mud into these indentations, every time you get a low spot you're trying to fill, what you want to do is you want to get enough, I can feel this stuff thickening up already, is you want to overfill it and then come back by using your mud knife against the pan, use a clean knife and level it off. So let me show you, you got a big glob of it. I'm going to overfill. To cover these holes that I have. This first process doesn't have to be perfect, but we're just trying to even everything out generally. Okay, I think I've filled that whole spot. Now I've got mud on here. I'm going to use the edge of my pan to clean that off so that I can now lightly drag over it and level it off. You don't need to work it too hard, but you want the edges where the edges meet the wall. That's where you kind of want it to be smooth. You don't want to leave a big, thick glob of mud that you have to then go back and clean up. Whew, when they say 20 minutes, they are not joking. I mean, it can't have been 20 minutes since I mixed this stuff, and it was getting very difficult to work with. You can see I have this ball of it, and it's kind of gotten squishy and crumbly. I mean, this may have been 15 minutes and this stuff was getting very hard to work. I got it done though. You can see the patches, what they look like. And once those dry, all that kind of grayness will go away. It'll all be a consistent color and I'll know it's dry. It shouldn't take too long and I'll be able to go over it with the next coat. What I'm doing now is the final step in this process, and I've mixed up another batch of this mud. And probably the smart thing would have been done to mix up, just use regular joint compound. But I'm lazy and I don't want to go to the store and buy more, so I'm just going to mix up the hot mud and try to be fast about it. With a larger trowel, spread it on. I'm going to do kind of a little bit of a hand trowel method because getting it flat is a lot of work and I don't want to go through the mess of trying to spray it on to get an orange peel texture or anything like that. So I'm going to do a simple hand trowel, call it a day, and then I'm going to paint it. Oh, one last thing that's really good is to take a bigger trowel after we did that last step and use the blade of it to scrape the wall down. That scrapes off any high spots and those final boogers, so when you're doing this last step, you get a nice smooth texture. My texture is complete. I finished everything. Went pretty well with the 20-minute mud. I didn't do too bad. As you can see, everything is dry. It's all the same color. I just put a thin skim coat or skip trowel on there. I guess I could probably do another video to show the skip trowel, what that looks like. But my last step before I paint is I'm going to take my my knife blade again, my taping knife. I'm just going to go over the surface one more time. And it's going to knock down any little ridges left by the trowel or sometimes little boogers that are left by where the mud will kind of roll up on you. And it just gives a nice professional finish and smooth to paint. I don't have to go at it too hard, but just so I can use my hand to feel for any rough spots as well that may want to be knocked down with a trowel. Once I go over the whole wall, I'm ready to paint. Okay, I'm all done. The painting is complete, textured the wall. I put my mirror back, it's like a custom homemade mirror that I did. The background, the mirror here is gone. It's nice and smooth. Painted just in time to go pick up my wife from the airport and give her a surprise when she gets home. We'll do another video where you can learn how to paint like a pro.